TikTok time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. It's your friendly neighborhood philosopher here, D. Wood. With me now, I've got Robert Spencer, who has a new book on Zohran Mamdani. Now,
There it is,
Robert,
David.
who is this Zohran Mamdani? I only heard about him a couple months ago, and you already have a book out on him.
Yeah, contrary, that I put this picture up here.
Uh huh.
It looks like a picture of me on the cover, but actually that
It
is
does.
Zohran Mamdani, and he is the next mayor of New York, almost certainly. He's the election is in a couple weeks at the beginning of November, and then in January he will become mayor, unless there's some unforeseen circumstance and the aged corruptocrat Andrew Cuomo, or the very severe long shot Curtis Sliwa wins the election. But Mamdani has a big lead in all the polls.
Could you tell that Curtis dude to take off that beret? Do we even know what that thing is for?
You know something, David? I've seen this guy wearing his beret since the 70s.
Oh,
And oh, yeah, he goes way back with his beret. I've
old
never
school.
seen him without the beret. But yeah, I used to see the Guardian Angels riding the subways when I was a very young man in New York City. And they were not always around, but they were quite often around. They all had the little berets too. Anyway, I saw the debate the other night, Cuomo, Mamdani, and Curtis Sliwa, and Curtis was not wearing his beret. I didn't even recognize him. And then I
Oh,
realized a while into it, oh, the old guy in the middle, that's Curtis Sliwa. But he wasn't wearing his beret. How was anybody going to know who it was?
that's a problem. I mean, so I didn't even know it was for the Guardian Angels. I was assuming it was some sort of military thing, but I was like, dude, you look like you kind of look like a weirdo there. It's like my grandfather was a Green Beret. You know how many times I saw my grandfather walking around in his Green Beret at Walmart?
Probably never.
Never, not in a million years, right?
Yep.
So that's what I was
Well,
thinking. Is like,
Curtis founded the Guardian Angels. And so that was part of the Guardian Angels uniform. The Guardian Angels, for any of you who don't know, was kind of a vigilante group. It might still exist for all I know, but it was much more visible in the 70s and 80s on the New York subways. They would go around and ostensibly, although I never saw them actually do it, I saw them walking around a lot, but they would be there saying if they saw crimes happening, they would stop them.
mhm.
And Curtis is an anti crime crusader. He's the Republican candidate for mayor of New York. Because New York is a one party, far left Democratic city, he has no chance of winning. And he's just going to split the anti Mamdani vote, which will almost certainly ensure the election of Mamdani.
And so that actually makes sense if that is the beret of the Guardian Angels, but it makes sense if you were walking around and you're a Guardian Angel because you would want people to recognize you as a Guardian Angel and not think you're someone else or a criminal or something like that. Running for mayor, not so much. So it's good that he actually took off the beret. That's a positive step forward. Might be too late because now, as you pointed out, people can't recognize him without the beret. So if he's got the beret
Yeah.
on, it's like, who is this dork? And if he doesn't have the beret on, who's this guy?
Yeah,
So
it's just the old guy between Cuomo. I mean, I'm sorry to keep saying that because I'm not too young myself, but Mr. Cuomo has been around forever. He is as corrupt as the politicians come in New York, and he's 67. But he looked young next to Curtis Sliwa. I don't know how old Curtis is, but in any case, it's a shame because the optics were bad. Pretty much everything, this whole election has been bad in every way. And one of the many ways in which it has been bad is that Cuomo is horribly corrupt and nobody wants to vote for him. Curtis Sliwa is superannuated and also the representative of an extremely minority view in New York. And Mamdani looks young and dynamic and glib, articulate,
that's enough.
handsome,
Like
appealing.
a
And
male
there you go.
AOC, like a male AOC.
Precisely.
And it's interesting. They keep New Yorkers keep getting going with these young young people who have absolutely no credentials or qualifications at all to to lead anything, being elected to Congress and now mayor and so on. It's just wild, wild stuff. It's like they have all the old corrupt people always running, and then it's hey, here's some young people who know absolutely nothing about anything, and but they can get popular online really quick, so vote for them, and people go for it apparently.
This is something I discuss in the book, David. It's a concerted effort, or it looks like it is, that we have a whole crop now, a whole group and a growing group of Democratic Socialists of America members who are political candidates who are, of course, Democrats. They are far left. They are young, appealing, good looking, non white. They always have to be non white, not male.
Even
If
though
they're
it's
male, then they have to be non white.
even though it's mostly a bunch of young white people voting for them. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah.
you're doing all the work for them.
But it fits the left's paradigm, that they're going to be multicultural and diverse and all that. But actually, these people are the least diverse group on the planet. You've got Omar Fateh, the Somali Muslim who is running for mayor of Minneapolis. You've got AOC. You've got a few others in Congress, of course, Ilhan Omar and so on. You've got Mamdani. You've got others coming up. And the whole idea is that this is diversity, but it's really just all socialism, quite often Islam, and the same ideology down the line. No diversity of thought. Maybe they're diverse in other ways, but they all think the same way.
Quick comment here. Then I hope Silva or even Cuomo drops out. I really don't care whichever makes it most likely that this snake man loses. I don't think Cuomo dropping out would help Silva win.
No.
Silva dropping out.
It's Sliwa.
Oh, Sliwa.
And if Cuomo drops out, Sliwa's still going to lose.
Yep.
Because they just don't have Republicans in New York. But if Sliwa dropped out, Cuomo would have a better chance of beating Mamdani.
Yeah, because I think he's last I saw he was down by like 12 points or something like this, and I think like Sliwa had like between 13 and 15. So if everyone for Sliwa just voted against Mamdani and went with Cuomo, doesn't that suck? You got the old corrupt guy versus the young communist Islamist.
Yeah, it made me glad that I no longer live in New York City.
Made me glad too.
I don't have to vote for Andrew Cuomo. And I think that if I lived there, I would have to sit down and reason it all out and think, okay, I got to vote for Andrew Cuomo here. This is a terrible thing. But anyway, don't have to do it.
It's this ongoing situation where, like, okay, you guys don't like this guy, but this is the best alternative you could come up with. All these millions of people, this is the best alternative you could come up with, and you wonder why you're losing. It did seem like when he won the Democrat primary that he just it was like AOC. People aren't paying attention. It's some new person. You've got the traditional candidates that everyone knows. Some young person that no one's familiar with comes along, and people aren't paying attention, but they're hustling. They're going like door to door to door to door to door, or in his case, mosque to mosque to mosque to mosque to mosque, building up a base, and then all of a sudden everyone's shocked. Who's about to be the next? In AOC's case, who's about to be the next congresswoman? We've never heard of this lady before. And who's, in his case, who's about to be the next mayor of New York City? And it's amazing because I've seen several videos so far where people are like going around asking who they support. Oh, Mamdani. And they start asking about his spot. People have no clue. They have no clue. He's just the young, new, exciting guy on the block where I vote for him and I feel good because I'm being so diverse. And that's all you need nowadays. That's all you need.
And he's offering free stuff.
Free stuff.
People don't think it through. Free stuff is never free. Somebody's going to pay for it. And as a matter of fact, you're going to pay for it, voters of New York who think you're going to get free stuff. You think, oh, wow, we're going to get free buses. I'm so tired of paying so much for the buses. You're just going to pay in taxes what you used to pay at the bus stop or on the bus. Mm-hmm. And it's probably going to be even more. This is how socialism works. It's really just a method of confiscation, not a method of equity or any genuine justice. It's just confiscating funds from those who are producing to give them to those who are not producing, as well as to those who are part of the elite groups. And that's all that Mamdani's going to do.
So he's now the sad part is running on this free stuff platform is pretty popular among people who don't really. This guy's going to give a bunch of free stuff. Yeah, I'll vote for him to give me free stuff. That's why it's always a compelling message, no matter how many times it completely fails and blows up in people's faces. But yes, running on a platform of free buses, free childcare, free Palestine. Perfect recipe for winning in New York right now.
And this, even more, it's a foolproof win-win situation, because you see socialist regimes throughout history, they only survive for any extended period if they trap their people in. The Berlin Wall, and of course the Soviet Union and other socialist states, they didn't have literal walls, but they had heavy penalties if you tried to leave the country. You couldn't just decide to fly to Paris or something. And Mamdani is going to be the mayor of New York City. He doesn't have walls around New York City. He can't force people to stay, so they're all going to leave. And the city will be bankrupt trying to pay for his socialist schemes. And then what will he do? He will blame Trump. Remember the 70s when New York went bankrupt. And I remember this very vividly. The New York Daily News had a very famous headline: Ford, the president, Ford to city, drop dead. It was a great headline. I'll never forget it. Many people will never forget it. But the fact is, Ford did not tell New York to drop dead. Ford just said, I will not bail you out. You have bankrupted yourself, wasting money. I'm not going to help. Now, the people who really made New York drop dead were Abraham Beame and John Lindsay and other mayors of New York who spent all the money on a lot of crazy schemes. And so they are the ones who told the city to drop dead. And it's the same case now. Mamdani will kill the city, and then he will say, look, Trump wants us to die, because Trump will say, no, I'm not going to bail you out. So he's got a ready scapegoat.
Yeah, so guys, you have a couple possibilities here. So he's a heavy favorite to be the next mayor of New York City. So it's always possible that someone will torpedo his campaign. They could decide, hey, this guy is really bad. People are, well, it's been pointed out. It's been pointed out, like the destruction of the Democratic Party has been letting them have the extremists among them take the reins of the entire party, and people are catching on, and they don't like it. They really don't like where things are going. And so, do you want more of this? Do you want more of this, or do you want to rein things in? So it's always possible that they'll like torpedo him and put the old guy that they trust for some reason in there. So that's a possibility. Another possibility is he gets into power, and then people more powerful than him give him a little talking to and say, hey, it's great that you got elected on all this stuff. You're not going to do this stuff. You would, it's not actually going to work. So great, you got into power. Now here's what you actually need to do, but you're not going to do that stuff. So that's possible, in which case he wouldn't carry out this stuff. If he actually jumps in there and starts doing this stuff, like free bus rides and free childcare and all this, as Robert pointed out, there's no such thing. This stuff is not free. It may be free for a particular person, but someone is definitely paying for it. And he claims that he's going to just make rich people pay for all this stuff. Well, guess what? It's a big country. Here's what happens, guys. Here's what happens when you get one of these socialists in there and he's like, hey, I'm going to take all the stuff from the rich people and give it to other people. Sounds great. What actually happens if you can't trap the rich people in there? There are places where you may be able to trap rich people in and they can't leave. This is the United States. They can leave. So what happens is you've got the upper class, the middle class, and the lower class. And then all of a sudden you get a socialist in power, and he declares war on the upper class and says, you guys are going to start paying for everything else for everyone else. Guess what? The upper class leaves. They go somewhere else. You'll have some people who stay. They're doing the math and they're saying, no, we'll still make a profit here, even though he's taxing us more and stuff. Those who can leave will go to a place that is friendlier towards their business. And so you're going to lose some of the people. And guess what? Guess what? There go a big portion of your taxes. So you're raising taxes, but you're losing all that money because they'll just leave. So the upper class leaves, and now the middle class is the new upper class. So who's paying for stuff now? You have to dial up taxes on the middle class. And then those among the middle class who can leave, they'll leave and go somewhere else. And then you've basically destroyed your entire city. And good luck getting people back, because now they're in Tennessee or Texas or something else. The regular people, they either went there or somewhere else. And then the business people, now their businesses are in other places. And you're going, please come back to our city, please. They're going, what? What city? You've destroyed it. We don't want to go back there. And that's how you just destroy a city, guys. And for some reason, people keep thinking, hey, let's do this. What a great plan. It's the definition of insanity, Robert. It's the definition of insanity.
Yeah, that's true, because it has been done many times before. We have seen what happens when you have socialist rule, or even, democratic socialist rule. When we get to the videos, you'll see this guy's a straight up Marxist.
Yep.
He's a total communist. He denies this, but it's very clear from his specific statements. But even if you have democratic socialism, we see where it leads. And this is not a secret. This is not voodoo. It's just like jihad. We see in the world, you read my book, The History of Jihad, there's 1400 years of jihad. There's never, the moderate Muslims live in peace for 300 years. It never happens, because Islam is not peace, and socialism never works. And it's not going to work this time.
But maybe, Robert, this will be the one time Islam and socialism work.
Yeah, this guy, speaking of Islam and socialism, this guy is also uniquely lethal in that he holds to not one but two radically dangerous, violent, aggressive, anti-American, anti-infidel ideologies. And that is Marxism, infidel in the sense of a non-communist in that case, and then Islam. He is not only a Marxist, as we'll get to, but a Twelver Shiite. And the Twelver Shiites, that's the official religion of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Every week in the mosques on Friday, they chant, "Death to America, death to Israel." This is a guy who holds to that same idea. And how is he going to act in New York? In New York, we already had assassination squads from Iran try to murder the Iranian dissident Masih Alinejad. So what's going to happen? The next Iranian assassination group comes into New York City. Is he going to work hard to stop them, or think, well, I actually agree with these people. Maybe I'll just pretend I don't notice they're coming in.
Now, Robert, you mentioned that he's a Twelver Shia.
Yep.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with Twelver Shias, as you pointed out, this is the regime in Iran. Now, Robert, for everyone who's confused about this strange alliance between the left and Islam, the socialists, the communists, and so on, and Islam, isn't that how the Ayatollah came to power? What wasn't it? Wasn't it this awesome alliance in Iran? Hey, we're all on the same page. The leftists, the communists, the socialists, we'll all work together with the Islamists. We'll drive out the Shah and get rid of him, and then we'll all live in harmony. And if I recall correctly, once they succeeded and drove the Shah and his family out, didn't the Muslims just kill the leftists?
100% correct, David.
Oh.
This is something I discuss in the book, actually, that a lot of people think, well, wait a minute, how could he be a communist and a Muslim? Marxism is atheistic. Well, sure, but it's also opportunistic. And they're happy to make accords with anybody who will help them attain their goals. Both Islam and the left are violent, authoritarian, utopian systems. That is, they want to establish an earthly paradise and enforce it with a reign of terror. And so they're deep down soul brothers, blood brothers. So in Iran, the Ayatollah Khomeini, he allied with the communists in Iran, the Tudeh party, and they thought, we're going to get a place in the government when he came to power. And instead he had them all arrested, imprisoned, ultimately executed. Uh, and I think that the left ultimately does frequently underestimates Islam and the Muslims that they're allying with. They don't realize this is a 1400-year jihad, and they're much tougher than the leftists that they're dealing with, and certainly that the leftists that they're dealing with think they are. And probably the outcome will be the same in America as it has been everywhere else.
Robert, I just asked AI, what is the richest city in the world? New York City is the richest city in the world, and it's basing this on the number of millionaires. So there are different ways. They say if you just went with average wealth, Monaco would be ranked first. But when you just tally up the number of millionaires, New York City is the richest city in the world by total millionaire population with 384,500 millionaires.
Wow.
384,000 millionaires. And you're
I don't know
elected.
a single one of them.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
And what I find interesting is, okay, you have why is your city so wealthy? Why are you ranked first in wealth? Because you have 384,000 millionaires in your city. And what did you just do? Let's declare war on these guys who can easily go somewhere else because they're millionaires. They have the money to go somewhere else. Let's put a mayor in power who's really going to piss all these guys off. Brilliant
What could
strategy.
possibly go wrong?
Yeah, just destroying New York City. Awesome stuff. All right, guys. So we have some video clips of Zohran Mamdani. I asked Robert to pick out some video clips that exhibit various features of our good friend Mamdani. They're not in any particular order. So Robert just sent me some video clips from various channels on X. So we're going to check those out, and Robert can add commentary. We'll take these first couple of super chats real quick. And then we'll jump into some videos. Is this what them kids call based? Yes. Love you, David. Boomer Wood. Oh, hi, Roberto Spencer. Great to see y'all again live. Love you guys and all you do.
You know, when I lived in the Bronx, I got sick. I went to the hospital, and I got bills from the hospital after that, and they were addressed to Roberto Spencer. It was just
Nice.
their default because it was the South Bronx, you know.
There's
And
no
so,
Roberto Spencer here.
No, I paid the bills, sir.
Nice.
Let's get that on record. But in any case, yep, that is a name that I have been called.
All right. So South Bronx for Robert. I lived in North Bronx for 12 or 13 years. How will Mamdani perform against the Al-Zut? That's the real question.
Well, Mamdani is a married man. I don't have any indication that he might have proclivities that way. On the other hand, people thought that about Muhammad too. So you never know.
Who knows what this guy's into. Congratulations on your recent award, Robert.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
The Dawa guys always scream, let me finish, let me finish. Are they trying to imitate the men of Al-Zut when they were horse riding Prophet Momo? Yes.
Gosh, David, you know, I've been so busy lately, and I haven't been doing any videos. And when I was last around doing videos, everybody was talking about Azut. And I come back, what is it, a month later, and everybody's talking about Azut. Is that nothing's happened for a month?
Yep. And this is a good one for when someone says, yes, when the Dawa guys, Joel, when one of the Dawa guys says, let me finish, I'll go, like the men of Al-Zut. So I'll toss that in there. David, did you watch Mansour's video about a man arrested for wearing the Star of David in the UK? No, I did not. Mansour who?
I don't know about the video, but I know about the incident. There was a man wearing a Star of David. That's all he was doing. He was not chanting. He was not holding a sign. He was not doing anything. He was standing in the presence of Palestinian protesters. And the UK police, being as compromised and clueless as they are, they came and arrested him. They didn't say a word to the protesters. They said he was being provocative by wearing the Star of David.
Well, there you go. It's only going to get better from here on, isn't it, Robert?
Yep. It's all roses from here on out.
Bless you guys. Thank you. Does the AP and D Wood channel have permission to poach your content? Guys, any of you have permission to poach our content? Just notice they added a members only section. Should I report? No, I don't particularly care. Worry about that later. Character. Oh, that's a super sticker. Thank you, Dissident. Let's see. Mamdani wins after he appears in a Bad Bunny video. I don't know what that's about. New York City. Your choice, Al Karaf hummus or Murdowich? Murdowich?
Yeesh.
The ists and ites from the Bible all bad.
I'm not sure that's true.
It took Muslims 400 years to take Byzantine, New York, and Michigan. Next 20 years, same strategy. My lover Muhammad followed. Oh, the channel name is Al-Zut the Destroyer.
It's very different, actually. They took the Byzantines. I mean, it took them more than 400 years. Read the history of jihad. It took them 800 years. But in any case, that was a military struggle. This is a jihad that's primarily facilitated by stupid infidels. It would not be happening if it weren't for stupid leftist infidels, in the first place, having brought all these people, among whom there are many jihadis, into the country, and then normalizing the jihad ideology steadily so that now there's virtually no opposition to it.
Or Americans will move out and Islamis will move in. Oh, that sort of thing will be happening as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, it'll it's going to start looking like London real quick, probably. Robert, I still see Al-Zut comments on the most random videos all across YouTube. Yes, this is the year of the Al-Zut. All right, Robert, you ready to check out some videos?
Yes, sir. Let's go.
All right. Again, no particular order, just a bunch of clips of Mamdani, and Robert is going to explain the relevance here. So here we go.
What the purpose is about this entire project. It's not simply to raise class consciousness, but to win socialism. And obviously raising class consciousness is a critical part of that. But making sure that we have candidates that both understand that and are willing.
Hold on. What in the blue hell is that shirt?
Yeah, that's a pretty serious shirt. This is from 2020 when he was speaking at a socialist conference by Zoom, because it was supposed to be an in-person conference, but of course that was the height of COVID. And so we have this. He denies that he's a Marxist. This is clear evidence that he is down the line committed Marxist with a shirt.
I can't pay attention to what he's saying because of a stupid shirt. Look at that. I'm going to have to like close my eyes and look somewhere else. It looks like something like from one of those like shows like Star Trek or something when they get to some alien world. And of course, for the show, they have to make up how these aliens dress. And it's always like some weird thing. And it's like that. That's kind of what it's like.
Yep.
All right. Let's back up. I was distracted. I did not hear a word he said. All right, here we go.
What the purpose is about this entire project. It's not simply to raise class consciousness, but to win socialism. And obviously raising class consciousness is a critical part of that. But making sure that we have candidates that both understand that and are willing to put that forward at every which moment that they have, at every which opportunity that they're given. We have to continue to elect more socialists. And we have to ensure that we are unapologetic about our socialism. There are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right, or whether it's the end goal of seizing the means of production, where we do not have the same level.
Seizing the means of production, that's straight up communism.
There you go, my friend. That's exactly why I sent you this clip. That he's talking about the end goal of seizing the means of production. The man's a straight up Marxist. The idea of Marxism is the government owns everything and they parcel out how much they think you need to you, no matter how hard or not hard that you work.
Yeah, and that's why these systems fail, because you're going to say, okay, we decide what you're going to get, and we're going to make sure everyone gets basically the same thing. as you pointed out, regardless of how hard you work or how hard you don't work, which means there's no incentive to work, it doesn't get you anywhere. And so everyone just becomes lazy and does a crap job because it doesn't matter. You have your job from the government. Everyone has your job from the government. It does not matter how well you do it or how poorly you do it. It's all the same. Everyone does a crap job. And I remember way back in the day, you remember this, Robert, you remember a place called the Soviet Union.
I remember it well.
And I remember when I was young and I would hear about like people, Americans who would go visit over there, and people over there would be offering to trade you something for like your pants and so on, because they can't get a good pair of pants over there because it's all crap. All they make is crap.
Yep.
Anyway,
I remember actually long time ago, I knew a guy who was Cuban, and he talked about his life growing up in communist Cuba, Fidel Castro's Cuba, and how every year they would get like 2 pairs of underwear, and the state gives it to you. That's it. You can't just go to the store and buy some. And so he was telling all these very funny stories about how he was trying to get some more underwear and how he had to trade or had to try to finagle it and make all these deals. And it became this huge elaborate thing, consuming all his time just to get a pair of underwear. Because this is socialism is a philosophy that mandates scarcity. As David was saying, you get the same amount of money no matter how hard you work, so nobody works hard. There is the threat of the gulag that keeps you doing some minimal work, but it's all low quality. It's all however much you can get away with not doing when they're not looking. And so all the goods are shoddy and there aren't very many of them. And that's how socialism works.
yeah, and the fundamental problem with these ideologies is, you can have some philosopher sitting down, writing this on paper and stuff and going, oh, this makes sense in my head. It's the biggest problem in the world, Robert, that people saying, oh, this works in my head. I can imagine this working in my head, and therefore it will work in the real world. That stupid idea needed to stay in your stupid head because it doesn't work in the real world. Yeah, I can imagine a world where everyone just works super hard for the good of everyone else. Sorry, there's something called human nature, and it doesn't work like that.
David, that's a very important point, actually, because Lenin himself, the founder of the Soviet Union, V.I. Lenin, he, I was reading a biography of him, and he's setting out all this crazy stuff, and the biographer says, well, you have to bear in mind that he was saying all this before the Gulag, before the Ukrainian famine, before communist China, before democratic Kampuchea. He may not have realized that this was the logical outcome of what he was saying. Now, maybe he should have had the sense to realize it, but remember that Zohran Mamdani is saying all this after all that, and yet he's still saying it. So the man knows better, or ought to know better, and it's criminal that we're once again being pushed this failed philosophy that has caused so much destruction.
And it's always the same pitch. Hey, you don't have a lot. Those guys over there got more. Wouldn't it be great if we just took their stuff and gave it to you and we all split it up and we all have the same? Yeah, it does make sense. Okay, great. And now your entire country has just been destroyed.
So it's the politics of envy. And in Christianity, we hear envy is a sin. Envy is a corruption of the soul that is important to avoid. Envy is, as the old expression goes, the thief of joy. It makes you depressed. No matter how good you got it, you can see somebody else who you think has it better and you get all sad. And so it eats away at your soul. It destroys your happiness, and it creates communist societies that cause untold human misery. If you just listened when the church says to you, when Christianity says to you, envy's bad, avoid it like the plague, then we wouldn't be in this fix. But this man is selling envy, and he's about to be elected mayor of New York on the basis of envy.
And here's what really gets me about all this, Robert. The United States is the most powerful and richest nation the world has ever seen. That means we got some things right. We got some of the big things right. Somehow we got some of the big things right. Which means you should be careful about changing the big things. You should be careful about changing the big things because you obviously got some of the big things right. If you want to try some completely new system of doing things, go try that in a crap country that doesn't have a lot to lose, right? If you have some country and they can't get anything working and everything's falling apart and you want to try something there, go try something there. When you're saying, well, richest country in history, what are we going to do with this? I don't know. Let's completely change the economic system. So let's change everything. That's why, I get suspicious when you're trying to change any big thing. It's almost like you need to really lay out a really good case for why you want to change something, and you need to show that this works better. This is obviously going to work better. You need to make some case for that. So when it's, hey, you've got your system here, and this made you the richest country the world has ever seen. You know what we need to do? Let's replace it with the differences. What are you going to replace it with? Something that fails every time it's ever been tested. It's like, wait, what? It's never worked ever? And you're going to replace what obviously has worked really well over here? And so that's like, but fortunately we don't have that like across the U.S. But we do see politicians who are just like, they're calling to change everything, that like every single thing. Every single like pillar of society, we want to tear everything down and change everything. And it's like, what basis do you have for thinking that this is going to make anything better? What possible basis could you have? Show me your empirical research that shows this will be better if we tear everything down and replace it with something else. This reminds me what Thomas Sowell said. He said it back in the 90s, but he said, we spent the past 30 years replacing what works with what sounds good. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much always the case with socialism. Hey, when you like free buses, that sounds good. Okay, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. That idea doesn't work. So anyway, but that's my view as far as like the United States as a whole. You got people, we want to change all this stuff. We want to change everything, every single thing. But then you got New York City in particular. And it's the richest country in the world. And the richest country in the world, the richest city in the world in terms of number of millionaires, hundreds of thousands of millionaires, you're saying, socialism here, that'll make things better. Really? The system that has never worked in any city ever is going to make the rich. Here's the point, Robert. If you have somehow achieved the richest city on the planet with the most millionaires on the planet, you obviously had something right about how you were doing things. You obviously did something that was really making this city rich. And what are you going to do? You're going to adopt the system that completely destroys economies. And people are going for it, man. And all I can say is, well, you asked for it, guys. You asked for it.
They're going to get it.
You asked for it, now you're going to get it. All right, back to our good friend Zohran Mamdani, who wants to seize the means of production. I backed it up a little here.
Socialism. There are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right, or whether it's the end goal of seizing the means of production, where we do not have the same level of support at this very moment. And what I want to say is that it is critical that in the way that we organize, in the way that we set up our work and our priorities, that we do not leave any one issue for the other, that we do not meet a moment and only look at what people are ready for.
Well, I'm convinced. Now I want to be a communist too. Please.
Maybe you'll get a shirt like that.
Please seize the means of production. Guys, does everyone understand like that? How that works out there? Like right now, in the United States of America, you can start a business. I want to go start a business. I want to work hard. I want to work hard. I'm going to put in 60, 70, 80 hours a week into my new business. Why? So I can build something and I'll have employees and so on. And nope, the government can do it better. So you just work for the government. And guess what? That took away all your incentive for working hard. It's no longer for you to build something and for you to establish something. Nope. And you have this, you can actually think, you could have a person who really, really just loves working hard and stuff. And so I'm going to work for the government and I'm going to just work myself silly. That gets old real quick when you're in the factory, the government-owned factory producing pants, let's say, and you see everyone else sitting around on their butts. And then so you're the one working and doing everything. It's like, why am I working so hard and everyone's sitting around doing nothing, making crap? Why? It completely destroys your will to excel because excelling doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't do anything. Welcome to the future of New York. All right, Robert, ready to check out the next video?
Okay, let's go.
Here we go. Zohran Mamdani. Some people calling him Zohran the Moron. People are just saying Zohran the Moron, but no, you got to put the Zohran the Moron. Got to get right.
Mohron.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it took Andrew Cuomo being beaten by a Muslim candidate in the Democratic primary for him to set foot in a mosque. He had more than 10 years, and he couldn't name a single mosque at the last debate we had that he visited. And what Muslims want in this city is what every community wants and deserves. They want equality, and they want respect. And it took me to get you to even see those Muslim community wants and deserves. They want equality. And what Muslims want in this city is what every community wants and deserves. They want equality and they want respect. And it took.
If that's all they wanted, I'd have no problem with it. It's the whole. We want the entire world, and we want to conquer you, and we want to take your wives and take everything you have and make you our dhimmis. That's kind of the problem. But we'll just pretend that's not a real thing. There, Zohran. Let me back up here. All right.
And what Muslims want in this city is what every community wants and deserves. They want equality and they want respect. And it took me to get you to even see those Muslims as part of this city. And that, frankly, is something that is shameful and is why so many New Yorkers have lost faith in this politics.
So he didn't go around visiting mosques, and this means he just doesn't care.
Indeed.
This dude's evil, Robert, but it's smart. I will. And I saw some clips. Steven Crowder sent someone undercover to talk to someone in Zohran's campaign. And the guy was saying, yep, we just keep going around the mosque. We just keep going around the mosque, getting more and more people in the mosque. But that's brilliant. That's apparently going to be everyone across the country needs to pay attention to what's going on because everyone's just going to adopt this method where get some young go-getter, go around to decide who you're going to get to vote for you, what's going to give you the majority, and just go around door to door, mosque to mosque, whatever it happens to be, go there over and over and over again. Then when you're on a debate, hey, has my opponent been to your house? No. Has my opponent been to your no. Who really cares about you? Who really cares about you? I'm the one who cares. Well, no, this was all part of your plan. This is just part of a plan. Part of a strategy.
Oh, absolutely. But also, we have to remember, Islam's a collectivist ideology. It is not individualistic. You see, whenever there's an election and the talking heads are breaking down the election results, then they say, okay, this group went 63% for candidate A and 37% for candidate B. And this other group went 59% for candidate B, whatever. Now, you never see that with the Muslim vote. The Muslim vote doesn't break that way. Mm-hmm. The Muslim vote is always 99% for one guy.
Because they're told who to vote for.
Precisely. Mm-hmm. Because they consider themselves to be part of the Ummah, the global Muslim community, and they have a responsibility to the community. There's tremendous community cohesion. This is why you have it's not just the death penalty for apostasy, but it is the closeness of the community and the insular nature of the community that discourages people from leaving Islam. Millions of people have asked me over the years, why don't Muslim women rise up? Because they're part of the community. They would lose everything if they rise up. They would lose all their friends, their social circle, their family. It's not that easy. They don't have a concept of going out and living on their own. You live within the community. You live within the group. The group tells you vote for this guy, you vote for this guy. Now, in American politics, that's like dangling catnip in front of a cat to tell a politician that if you go pander to this group, all of them will vote for you. All of them. Not just 60% or 70%, but all of them. And so he's excoriating Cuomo, but you're right, the whole thing was a fix. There was no chance that they were ever going to vote for Cuomo anyway, because Mamdani is in the group. And so he goes to a mosque and they say he's a Muslim brother. You vote for your brother, and he's going to get 100% of the Muslim vote.
So hold on, Robert, hold on. What you're saying is, now let's take a fictional country. Let's call it the United Kingdom. So if I'm a politician in the United Kingdom, and I know there's this one group out there that will always vote as a bloc, it would be in my best interest, if I want to have a job and retain my place of power, to bring in as many of these people as possible and to convince them that I'm their buddy. And also all I need to do is praise their religion and keep bringing them in and telling them I'll do whatever they want and silencing all critics and arresting critics and so on. And I'll just stay in power until they decide to just start putting themselves into power. And then there's no stopping it. But that would be that could be something that works.
Yep, definitely. And Mamdani here, he's telling Cuomo that this is how it works now. You want to be mayor of New York City?
Go to the mosque.
You pay your respects to the mosques. And if you don't do it, you got no chance. And the more Muslim immigration into the city, which of course he will facilitate as mayor, the more that's going to be true.
Now, Robert, you know what would have completely won the election for Cuomo right there? You know what would have won the election for Cuomo?
What's that?
Mamdani says, and this man hasn't visited one single mosque. All Cuomo had to reply with was, well, after reading what happened to your prophet by the men of Al-Zut, I want to stay as far away from these mosques as possible. There would have been thunderous laughter and applause from the audience. That clip would have been shared everywhere by millions and millions of people. Cuomo would have won by a landslide, all with the power of the story of Al-Zut. And he screwed it up. This is why he's going to lose.
I think if he had said that, I'm not sure the crowd would have known what he was referring to, but once it came out in the papers, it certainly would have blown the race wide open. But
not in the Zut sense.
Yeah, exactly. But of course, Cuomo doesn't have any idea of this either. The problem is we got such a weak candidate against this guy who's part of a deeply corrupt system and doesn't have any idea how to deal with what he's facing in Mamdani. And so, well, as we've said, it doesn't look good.
Take a couple super chats, then we'll go on to the next video. I am noticing a lot of anti-Semitism among recent converts to Orthodoxy, as well as from some of the more old world people. How can we address this? Also, what happened to This Week in Jihad?
Okay, well, as far as This Week in Jihad goes, I have been busier than any human being ought to be. I've got 3 books coming. This one is out now that you should all go and buy. Intifada on the Hudson, The Selling of Zohran Mamdani. You think he sounds bad in this show? It's worse. And Holy Hell, Islam's Abuse of Women and the Infidels Who Enable It, coming next month. And then another book, The Tragedy of Islam, Failure and Excuses, which is about kind of what we were talking about earlier, about how Islam is a failed system like Marxism, keeps on nonetheless being spread by people who do not recognize how it has failed, and meanwhile there are all these infidels making excuses for its failure. Anyway, 3 books, Jihad Watch every day, many other obligations, so I apologize, I just haven't been able to do it. Also, obviously, you've got many great video people out there. I know that I'm not one of them. I don't have to do everything and not able to do everything. This Week in Jihad also is kind of samey, because the jihad is kind of samey. It's, in other words, somebody blew something up, somebody killed somebody, some guy standing on a street in Paris knifing people. We could write This Week in Jihad totally, just write a template and just fill in the name.
We could make one episode with a bunch of blanks.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Then someone else could just matter of fact, Robert, we can make an entire episode where we just leave out names and places and stuff like this. And then we could just have a separate recording where we just name every city and country on the planet where these things take place. And then someone could just take the template and insert the names and places, and it goes forward perfectly well.
Press 1 for Spanish. And so anyway, I am grateful to all of you who have asked me about it. I hope one day to be able to resume it. But right now, it's just been such a crush, and there are only so many hours in the day. Now, as far as anti-Semitism among recent converts to Orthodoxy, in the first place, there are, and we have to be honest about it, several of the great saints and fathers of the church, notably St. John Chrysostom, but also others who have said some things that appear to be quite anti-Semitic. And I discussed this in my book, Anti-Semitism, History and Myth. Now, there are many, it's a thing, a hallmark of the Orthodox tradition to revere the fathers and to follow their lead in understanding the scriptures, in understanding the faith, and so on. So this has led a lot of the recent converts to think, well, we have to hate the Jews because they hate the Jews. But it's very dangerous to go down this road, because in the first place, you're talking about John Chrysostom. He was writing in the 4th century, the late 4th century, the early 5th century. He died in 407. And he was not, in other words, writing in modern conditions, in the modern situation. He was writing at a time when the Christians were going to the synagogues and attending the services, and he was deeply concerned that they were going to get confused about the nature of the faith and so on. And he wrote some things that were very blistering, but taken in the context of post-Holocaust, they read very differently from how they did when he wrote them. When he was writing as the leader of one religious group that he felt threatened by the other. Now, this is not to say that he was wrong or bad or something like that, but just that he was writing in very different conditions, and it's not wise to just flatten out history and assume that anything said at any point applies 100% to a very different situation, which is what we're living in. It's not like the 4th century Roman Empire. And so, the orthobros, as they're called, I think that they're not really sufficiently aware or interested in those historical differences. And that's too bad. I tried to explain them, as I say, in the book Anti-Semitism, History and Myth. But obviously, if you look at leaders like His All Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew of Constantinople and others, they have been very clear that anti-Semitism is no part of Orthodoxy. Those are the authorities. The thing about non-Protestant Christianity is that they're actually authorities. And so it's not just that you have some guy who's got a YouTube channel and he's the guy who you listen to. So you listen to some ortho bro with a YouTube channel. Well, he's not a patriarch or bishop. So proceed with caution. There's a lot of faddism, a lot of groupthink among those people, and also a lot of deeply uncharitable behavior, nasty hostility from guys like Jay Dyer and people like that. And I think that's not the orthodoxy that I love, and certainly not what our Lord calls us to model. And so I say proceed with tremendous caution in listening to these people.
You heard it here, folks. Don't ever listen to anyone with a YouTube channel.
Yeah, read books. There you go.
Here she says, Dawood, can you maybe censor bar his shirt? This was from Mamdani's, about Mamdani's awesome shirt.
Yes.
Why do atheists, socialists, and Muslims so align? Well, you couldn't lump atheists together there because atheists would be all over the place. What you would say is leftist atheists align with Muslims. And that's just basically anyone who wants to tear down a current system to replace it with something else. They're usually glad to work with each other. We have a common thing that's much bigger than our separate groups. And so we should all work together in tearing it down. And every different group thinks, oh, and after we tear that down, then our group will win. And it turns out to be the jihadis that just behead all the other groups.
Also, there's a deep affinity, and this is something I've spoken about many times, and I believe I even write about it to some degree in this book, the Mamdani book. But they're both authoritarian utopian systems, and I was saying actually some of this before, that they want to establish an earthly utopia. And they both do it by a reign of terror. The Muslims want to establish Sharia. Sharia is based on the idea that you implement the will of Allah in every aspect of life. So it's the perfect society. And if you get out of line, you get stoned, you get your hand cut off, you get your head cut off. And so everybody else is too frightened to get out of line. It's a reign of terror. The socialist left works the same way. They want to establish the perfect society of the workers' paradise. And if you get out of line, you go to the gulag. It's a reign of terror. Solzhenitsyn writes about how innocent people were arrested in the Soviet Union. People they knew were innocent. And their families would go and say, the guy's innocent, let him go. But they didn't want to because they wanted to terrorize the rest of the people into submission. And that's just what Sharia does. By all its draconian punishments, it terrorizes you into submission. So they are blood brothers. They are deeply aligned because they have the same worldview. They're both authoritarian utopians.
Robert, you're not fooling anyone. Retiring from Jihad Watch to work on the Batcave. Robert is Bruce Wayne and Mamdung's. I guess that's another nickname for Mamdani.
Mamdani.
Mamdung's worst nightmare. David is Alfred.
Okay. I have not retired from Jihad Watch. Jihadwatch.org is a website that carries the jihad news every day, still does, hasn't changed. You don't have to have a video to go read the jihad news. It's all still there. Everything that was in This Week in Jihad is at Jihad Watch.
And
everything that was in every episode of This Week in Jihad, we reported at Jihad Watch.
In fact, Robert, were someone so inclined, could someone else get together with one or two friends and just read everything at Jihad Watch and actually just do a show called This Week in Jihad? Could someone else do that?
Yeah, that would be great as far as I'm concerned. I'd appreciate it if they gave credit to where they were reading from, but that would be it.
They could just be straight up pulling up Jihad Watch articles and commenting on them, right?
Yeah, that's what we did.
That's what we did, guys. I actually did nothing. I would make a thumbnail and set up a live stream, and Robert, since he goes through this stuff every day, would just pull up all the stuff that he's gone through that week.
Yeah, but also you should understand when I say that my time is so pressed, This Week in Jihad took hours.
Oh, I know.
Set up.
I know how. I know like setting up a live stream. So we're doing a live stream right now. Guess what? I had to download the video. So I had to ask you for video clips. You had to find the video clips, send me the video clips.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have to download the video clips. I have to like import them because I want to check volumes and stuff like that. Then I have to, after I've done all that, I have to go talking. Now that isn't terrible, but that's altogether that's a few hours. That's a few hours of work. So it's not just like however long you're live. It's actually getting everything ready.
Yeah. And I had everything to do that, everything else to do on top of that. You know, these books and the website and other responsibilities as well. So once again, apologies, but you can still get the Jihad news at jihadwatch.org.
And if anyone wants it in news form, you can start a live stream and go through the articles over on Jihad Watch. Boom. Since millions of New Yorkers are immigrants, mostly from way worse places of what New York will be like in the next 50 plus years with the society, they have nothing to lose. Oh, socialism. Okay. They have nothing to lose. You cannot scare them with socialism. No, actually, I mean, again, I looked, his biggest supporters are white liberals and Asian liberals. That's his voter base. Minorities, at least when I checked a while back, minorities, blacks, Hispanics, and so on, they were going for Cuomo.
It's just like South Florida. You know, the Democrats facilitated mass migration thinking that all those people would vote Democrat because they were coming from leftist societies and they would reflect the same philosophy. But a great many of the people in South Florida were people who suffered in communist Cuba. They hate communism. They do not want to bring it here. And they did not vote the way the Democrats expected. Which is not to say that the Republicans have any sense either. But anyway.
Robert, thoughts on Muhammad being an Abyssinian bishop? What? You're going in a completely different direction here.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that offhand. I've heard various scenarios in which he is cast as being a Christian or a Jew or listening to Christian. Of course, there's record of that in the Islamic traditions. But being a bishop, I mean, if that's true, then the stories have been so altered after that's just more indication that they don't have any historical value, as I have argued now for years. This is the basis of the whole idea of skepticism about Muhammad, that there's just nothing in these stories that can be depended upon to be historically accurate. And so if he were an Abyssinian bishop, then there's no record of it in the Hadith literature, in the Sirah literature, nowhere. So that's altogether to be expected because it's clearly highly adulterated.
Misa says, did you guys see the picture of Zohran with a kippah surrounded by Jews? Educate your audience on the Hart-Celler Act and the Jewish influence.
Okay, well, everybody's becoming anti-Semitic nowadays, and I got to tell you, I got no patience for you people, because the Hart-Celler Act and in the 1960s, mid 1960s, 65, there were laws changed where immigration had been restricted to people from Europe or primarily people from Europe, with an idea that there was a cultural integrity, ethnic and cultural integrity to the United States that they wanted to preserve. And that was thrown out in the mid-60s, the Hart-Celler Act and so on. But Ted Kennedy was the primary proponent of changing the immigration laws and making it so that anybody could come from anywhere. And so you're telling me Ted Kennedy was some pawn of the Jews? You know, this is just a lot of hooey.
No, Robert. No, it's this thing that apparently Jews are the only group you're allowed to do this with, because everyone else you're not allowed to do it with. But Dennis Prager pointed out, he said, you can't say the Jews anything because you have Jews who are on the right, you have Jews who are on the left. And he was pointing out, he says, I have nothing in common with someone like George Soros. Nothing. You cannot point to any idea we hold where we actually agree. But here's how it works. And he pointed out there, he said, so you had people who are Jews involved in starting communism and so on. So they'll say the Jews started communism. Well, guess what? You had Jews involved in establishing capitalism as well. So the Jews started. So whatever you hate, you just point and say the Jews did that. And you have lots of Jews like on the left. So you can always point to a place like the Southern Poverty Law Center and say, look, there's a Jew there. You see, the Jews are doing this. It doesn't matter what you don't like. You can find a Jew somewhere involved in some system and say, see, why don't you talk about how the Jews are doing this? And it's just pathetic, lazy, weak thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So Zohran goes to a synagogue and he's wearing a kippah. So suddenly he's a tool of the Jews.
This means the Jews are behind this.
Zohran is trying to shore up the Jewish vote, worried that he might lose some of it because he's been so inveterately anti-Israel and so on.
Yeah, supporting the Holy Land Five.
You talk about mass migration into the West, which Hart-Celler facilitated, and people talk about the Jews doing it. Well, have you ever heard of Pope Francis? Or Pope Leo, for that matter. Pope Leo the 14th just got in, and what does he say? That you can't be pro-life if you are not in favor of mass migration into the West. Well, okay, so is he Jewish now? Well, he does wear a kippah. Must be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Mises West, seriously, grow up. It's just pathetic. If you could pick anything else, like suppose you just really hated Irish people, could you find people with Irish background in everything you don't hate? I mean, everything you hate, and then say, look, it's the Irish. Yes, you could. There's just one group that it's acceptable to do this with. Robert. Oh, well, already did that one. Every time he says we, les Americans, we, i.e. Americans. Who?
He's very sharp. He's very articulate. He's very smart. He's glib. He's appealing. He's charming. And so that makes him an extremely dangerous candidate.
Mm-hmm. Can the Freedom Center arrange a sit-down between Dennis Prager and John Lennox? We need their stories behind the Iron Curtain and their ideas on happiness.
Okay. Well, I am affiliated with the David Horowitz Freedom Center, and I'm happy to help in any way. But in the first place, I don't know who John Lennox is. In the second place, Dennis Prager, unfortunately, had a terrible accident some time ago. I did see that he made a video recently, but he's still he's in very bad shape. So I don't know that he's up for some sort of a discussion with this Lennox. I don't know who Lennox is, but
John Lennox. He's an Oxford professor of mathematics. He's got like three doctorates, but he also does Christian apologetics, and he sounds like a leprechaun. But super smart guy. Again, 3 doctorates, and so yeah, he's kind of jolly and fun and so on. Yeah, so that wouldn't have anything to do with the Freedom Center. Anyone who wants to have a discussion with Dennis Prager is either going to have to be like online, or someone would have to go to him. So if you wanted to see a discussion between Dennis Prager and John Lennox, you should you should contact Dennis Prager and say, hey, why don't you guys invite John Lennox to come out for a discussion? And yes, I would watch that because both those guys are very intelligent, very good thinkers. All right, one more and then we'll jump back into videos. Cuomo didn't visit Muslims, but Muhammad visited me once, and I made it memorable for Muhammad and Ummah. Hopefully, Mamdani will be visiting me soon. And this is from Al-Zut the Destroyer. I wonder if that's actually your name. Hey, Robert, we tell all these Zut jokes, and the descendants of the Zut are the Jat people of India. And it's just funny when they hear the story of the Zut, they're like, that is what we did. It's exactly what we did to Muhammad. I'm proud of my ancestors. I'm proud of them for doing this. It's pretty funny.
Oh, I love it.
Yep, they're pretty fun. Pretty fun. All right. Oh, and by the way, I went to the Jat website, and they said in earlier centuries we were known as the Zut, and we actually had a meeting with Muhammad in the desert once. They didn't say what the meeting
that's
was.
beautiful.
Yeah, I know. It's actually funny. It's on the Jat people's website that they met with Muhammad.
Fantastic.
Nice, nice, nice. All right. Now we have another clip of Zohran Mamdani. I do not know what is in this clip. Let's see what it is.
You cannot be touching me as a Muslim woman.
Oh yeah, what is this? I remember this one. It's a woman freaking out. What's this about?
He's at a LGBT. You see the rainbow. He's
Okay.
speaking. You can't really see him, but he's way up at the front of the hall, and she's a Muslim woman yelling at him for being at the LGBT
Oh,
celebration.
Yeah, isn't that what you would expect, right? Wouldn't you expect, I mean, what would you expect from Muslims? Because you see what happens when they get into power. Like again, they'll work together until they take over a city, and then what happens? We saw it. We saw it at a town in Michigan, and then all these leftists worked their hardest to get a bunch of Muslims into power on the city council, and then they said, "Yeah, no more of this pride stuff." And what happened? All the leftists go, "What? Where's the gratitude? We worked so hard to get you into power, and now you just throw us all under the bus." That's what you would expect. But it's just weird, Robert. All the vast majority of Muslims, yeah. Go hard with all this LGBTQ stuff.
Well, they know they need the alliance.
Mhm.
The thing is, what beats me is, why is it that the LGBTQ people don't say, wait a minute, you're going to throw us off buildings. You
Yep.
know, why are we doing this? But nobody ever, of course, nobody confronts him there except the Muslim woman. All the leftists just sit there and say, isn't it great that he's here?
Mm-hmm. And so, language warning, guys. I remember getting this clip ready. So there is a language issue. So anyway, I didn't watch the entire clip. So you're saying this is a woman blasting Mamdani, not in the Zut sense,
Yes.
but blasting Mamdani for being with all the LGBTQ stuff.
Yep.
All right, let's check it out.
You cannot be touching me as a Muslim woman. Get off of me. You just witnessed that and you didn't do shit. You should be ashamed. In the Quran, it says that there will be hypocrites. Hypocrites who believe in Allah and say that they are Muslims. But you know what makes them different? They side with the oppressors. You cheer on AOC. AOC signed in support of the Iron Dome, and yet you glaze her. You praise her. You should be ashamed, you hypocrite. They are continued to be brutalized for protesting against genocide every single fucking day, protesting against graduations, and you still haven't said shit, but you will condemn direct actions against Zionist settlers. Have some damn shame. How do you pray every single day to Allah?
Notice also it's a church where all the gay stuff is.
Smart. Guys, whatever church that is, you guys are doing a bang up job. You're changing the world.
And of course, she's all exercised about Israel. And it's because AOC is not sufficiently anti-Israel, and he's palling around with AOC. And so that's what she's yelling about.
Yeah, his response to this lady should be, "Hey, quiet it down. Wait till I get in power." It's
I
only
don't think there is any response, if I recall, but anyway.
It's only temporary.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
I mean, I've only seen some clips and so on, but he seems more diehard leftist who's using Islam than like Islamist who's using leftism.
That's what I say in the book, because
Yep.
every time he talks about what he wants to do as mayor, it's all this socialist communist stuff, like decommodify housing. That is, make it not a private matter, but a matter of government housing that everybody's forced to live in. When he talks about Islam, it's only when he's playing victim and saying people have been so Islamophobic to him, or when he's claiming that like Cuomo is Islamophobic and has never visited a mosque.
Yep. So, guys, looks like Robert and I are thinking the same thing about this guy, because at the end of the day, Islam and socialism, especially the socialism that is just far left with the aligned with LGBTQ stuff and so on. These don't go together. Um, they make very different claims about how to govern a state and so on. And so when you see someone who's a Muslim socialist or a Muslim communist or something like this, you should be thinking, okay, is this a Muslim who's using socialism or communism to dupe people and to get into power? Or is it a socialist communist who's using Islam for the votes? Seems like he's a serious believer in all the socialist commie nonsense he's spouting and using Islam because, as Robert pointed out, they'll vote as a block. So if you just go around to all the mosques, if you have between 750,000 and a million Muslims in New York, and you can get them to vote as one big block by going to some mosques and then saying, but where's my opponent? He's not in any of the mosques. That's all you need to do.
So one other consideration about that, though, and that is that he has said that it was the Palestinian issue that made him get into politics.
Mm.
And so he is clearly, that was actually when he first started to become politically active, was when he was in college and started a Students for Justice in Palestine chapter at Bowdoin College, which is in Maine. And he has said, well, you saw that earlier clip where he said we have to work for our overall goals. He didn't just say seizing the means of production, which is, of course, Marxism, but also BDS, which is divesting from Israel. And so he's very deeply concerned to support the jihad against Israel and said that that's what got him into politics. So the Muslim side, we shouldn't discount it. And I think that it wouldn't be in the least surprised it wouldn't be at all surprising if what you're saying about this clip is true and he stops with all this with the LGBTQ once he's elected and becomes more obviously and ostentatiously Islamic.
And I mean, if he does, I mean, that is the quickest way to block criticism among New Yorkers. You just, hey, look, so you can do all this crazy stuff, and then anyone who criticizes you, they're just criticizing you because you're Muslim. That's it. That's the only reason they're criticizing. You can actually be like destroying the city. Anyone who criticizes you, they're just criticizing me because I'm Muslim. It is the ultimate criticism blocker. But
he's already doing this.
Oh,
the guy's very slick. Cuomo had a flyer where they made him look scary in a picture, made Mamdani look scary. Now, David, I mean, I find political flyers kind of interesting to see how they're trying to sell their candidate. And it's a common thing on political flyers to make the other guy look bad. Mm-hmm. They get some picture of him looking stupid, silly expression on his face, or they manipulate the lighting so that he looks scary.
They do that in the videos, all the campaign videos and stuff like this. My opponent is basically the worst person in the universe. Look at this, all in black and white.
And so Cuomo did that, business as usual, standard flyer, and Mamdani cried Islamophobia, said, look, they lengthened my beard and made me look darker so I'd be more scary. It was all nonsense from beginning to end, but he made a big deal of it, got all the media on board, condemning Cuomo for Islamophobia.
Yeah, and he's been doing that sort of thing for a while, Robert. I think if he actually becomes mayor, there's one thing we can all be thankful for, and that's that his rap career is over. Because these were, guys, I'm not even joking or exaggerating. I've heard some terrible raps over the years, and this guy is hands down the worst. But his song "Salam," that's where he declared his love for the Holy Land Five. Who are the Holy Land Five, Robert?
They are people who were facilitating the transfer of funds from the Holy Land Foundation, which was the largest Islamic charity in the United States, to Hamas. Mm-hmm. So actually, I heard recently about somebody's mom or grandmother, and she was a devout Catholic, and she thought, oh, the Holy Land Foundation. I want to give to the Holy Land. So she's given all this money to the Holy Land Foundation, not realizing it's a Hamas front. And so the Holy Land Five went to prison for funneling the charitable contributions to Hamas. Mamdani's praising them in the rap, and the rest of the rap is all about how terrible it is to be a Muslim in New York.
That's what I wanted to bring up.
Muslims suffer, which is a lot of nonsense.
Yeah, so he declares his love, but think about the progression, Robert. Think about the progression, because it's sort of like, and it encapsulates the overall approach. So that song starts off with him moaning and wailing about his poor aunt, who is so terrified of Islamophobes that she can't even leave her apartment in New York. She can't even ride the train because people, non-Muslims, will beat her up. They'll just beat her up. And so she has to live in fear her entire life, hiding in her apartment. It's like, dude, Mamdani, your dad is a professor at Columbia University. Your mom is a film producer, and you're about to be mayor of New York City, and you're complaining about how you're all victims in this horrible, horrible, oppressive, anti-Muslim country that you're in. It's weird that so many Muslims want to go to New York City when you can't even, you according to Zohran, you can't even walk out the door, and they just have to live in fear all their lives. But so he spends all this time portraying themselves as the victims. We're victims, we're victims, we're victims, we're victims, we're victims. I love the Holy Land Five. Why? Because you're all victims of oppression. So obviously you have to support the freedom fighters and so on. But also, now that you're bringing up your support for those who fund terrorism, no one can object. Or they're just like the bullies who beat up your poor aunt. You don't want to be like the bullies who beat up this guy's aunt, do you? All right, then shut up when he's supporting terrorism.
There you go.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Are we learning yet, everyone? Because this is, I mean, you could actually just write down the plan, the script, and then just give it to people across the country, across any Western nation, and it'll work. It'll work a lot. It'll work a lot.
Oh, yeah. And they're doing it. That's what I was saying earlier. He's not the only one like this. And you got Omar Fateh in Minneapolis. There's going to be many more. And they're just following the same template.
Alhamdulillah, there are 1 million Muslims in this city. 200,000 of us are registered to vote as Democrats. In the last election, only 7% of us voted. Now, I will not blame anyone because often it feels like there isn't much to vote for. But this June 24th, with early voting starting tomorrow, it is an opportunity. An opportunity for us to show that Muslims don't just belong in New York City, we also belong in City Hall. Because yesterday I stood on the debate, and Andrew Cuomo stood next to me. And here was a man who was the governor for a decade, and he could not name a single mosque he had ever visited. He could not name it because he does not care.
Yeah, but I care. That's why I'm here. I'm not here just to get in power. I'm here because I'm the one who cares.
There you go. But it's important to note that he is saying that they haven't been voting, and that it's because they have not had anything much to vote for. And this might seem to be puzzling in light of what we were saying before about how they vote as a block and you're going to get 100% of the Muslim vote if they tell them to vote for you. But that's the thing, that they have not actually had an election where there was a Muslim vote in a Muslim candidate, and one that they told people to vote for. So most of them didn't vote. Some of them voted, and that was that. But if they all tell them to vote for Mamdani, they all go.
All right. Now we have another clip here.
The pressure, no matter the attacks, I will not move on those principles. And I tell you, brothers and sisters of this masjid, that we have an opportunity starting tomorrow for early voting.
You hear that? You hear that wind noise, ladies and gentlemen? That's a genius recording right next to a fan that's blowing around. Great job, guys. Great job. It's 101. If you're recording, don't be near the fan. I'll back it up. Anyway, just wanted people to be aware of that before they complain, what's the weird noise? I can't see it, but I guarantee there is a fan right beside this person. All right, here we go.
No matter the attacks, I will not move on those principles. And I tell you, brothers and sisters of this masjid, that we have an opportunity, starting tomorrow for early voting until Election Day on June 24th, an opportunity to show that New Yorkers want that consistency. They want those principles. They want a belief in humanity. And alhamdulillah, in this city we have 1 million Muslims. 200,000 of us are registered as Democrats. But in the last election, only 7% of us voted.
Now, we already heard from his last little speech that right now he's going to say, now, I get it. Sometimes it feels like there's not a lot to vote for. But now we've got a Muslim.
Yep.
Let's say.
That he's okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
I will not judge anyone in our community because often it feels like there's not much to vote for.
Shocker.
But this year we have an opportunity.
This guy memorized like a 2-minute speech and just runs around mosque to mosque to mosque to mosque to mosque.
Absolutely.
Wow.
But notice what he was saying before that New Yorkers are hungering for what the Muslims have. That the Muslims have to assume the position of teaching the New Yorkers the proper values. Well, isn't that exactly the supremacist Islamic political idea? That they rule and they teach what's right and wrong. Remember that when the Quran says you were the best of peoples on earth, in chapter 3, verse 110, it says then enjoining what is right and forbidding what is wrong. The Muslims are the best of people because they tell everybody else what's right and what's wrong. And so he's telling the Muslims, now's our chance to do that in New York City. And the New Yorkers want it.
And I mean, look at this. These guys look like pretty serious Muslims in here, not like liberal Muslims. And yet they've got the most pro-LGBTQ mayor candidate in all of history in their mosque. We should start making fun of all these guys in these mosques for supporting this. Like, I mean, you literally wrote the book on him, Robert, so you know about all his all the stuff he's been supporting and the stuff he's been calling for with legalizing prostitution. Well, I don't know. Maybe these guys would like that. I don't know.
Yeah, they wouldn't have any problem with that.
No. Yeah, we just gotta marry her for an hour while we're banging her.
Remember Anwar al-Awlaki.
Mm-hmm.
We have an opportunity. And I can tell you, I began this race at 1%, and today I am just 2% away from Andrew Cuomo. 2% away from City Hall. 2% away from making history. And that is why every day a new Republican billionaire puts $1 million into this race to attack me. But I know that I have something they do not have, which is the support of people across this city. So I ask you to tell everyone in your life that this election is here, to tell them what's on the ballot, and to tell them that we as Muslims deserve what every other community deserves, equality and respect. But we know that in this city and in this...
There's like 30 people in there recording this on their phones, and the one that circulates is the one with the guy right beside the fan.
That's why these people need to be in charge.
Yeah, they'll do a bang-up job running the city. All right, here we go.
We are not going to be given those things. We have to win those things.
And then he record himself so we all know the dope are recorded right beside the fan. Why'd you do that, man? You would have been forever anonymous. We would never have known your terrible videography skills. And now I know when I see you walking down the street, I'm going to be like, you're the dude that recorded by the fan, aren't you? Huh? Yeah. All right, here we go.
Not going to be given those things. We have to win those things.
Everyone see this guy? Hey, look, I got this big giant mosque here. It'd be a great place to record right beside the coolness of this fan. That's the best place to record. Find yourself a nice cool spot right beside the fan, and that way I'll be cool and everyone else will be hot, but I'll be cool and I'll get this great audio. All right.
Equality and respect.
But we know that in this city and in this country, we are not going to be given those things. We have to win those things. And one way we win them is at the ballot box. So I ask you, when you go and vote, remember, it is our opportunity to show that Muslims don't just belong in New York City.
We belong in City Hall.
Belong in City Hall too. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Come on, you forgot you're in the mosque? You forgot you're in the masjid? What's going on? Just one.
Alhamdulillah, the streets will flow with the blood of anyone who does not vote for Brother Mamdani.
But you notice he's going to win equality and respect at the ballot box.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the funny thing about respect, ordinarily respect is earned. People do something that other people think is admirable, and so they respect that person. What he's talking about is that they demand the respect. And this is something that we often hear from Muslim spokesmen, that they demand respect when they are behaving in a way that's completely not respectable. Killing people, victimizing innocent people, all the business with women, and then they say, and we demand respect. Well, cut all that out first, and then we'll see.
All right. Ready to hit this next clip?
Yes, sir.
Let's see what we got here.
Make sure that's affordable for all. And as it pertains to Israel and Palestine, that we have to ensure that there's peace. And that is the future that we have to fight for.
But you won't say that Hamas should lay down their arms and give up leadership in Gaza.
I don't really have opinions about the future of Hamas and Israel beyond the question of justice and safety.
You all know he believes in global intifada.
Of course he doesn't.
Well, the thing about it is that he says, I don't have opinions about Hamas and Israel after he's been giving opinions about Israel, saying that Israel is committing genocide, Israel is doing all these terrible things. He's going to get Netanyahu arrested if he comes into New York, and then he doesn't have any opinions about Hamas. He won't say that Hamas should lay down its arms. It's very clear the man is pro-Hamas.
Well, to be fair, he did say he loves the Holy Land Five.
Yeah, there you go.
Interesting stuff. Take a couple of super chats and then we'll jump into these last few video clips. Let's see.
Yes, sir.
Best way to respond to anti-Semitic celebrities with a huge following like WWE wrestler Sami Zayn, who posts anti-Israel propaganda every day across multiple platforms. Well, he's got a big platform and a ton of followers spreading his nonsense. You just have to consider yourself part of a big community that would respond to him. Because, in other words, you can't compete with his platform, but you combined with a lot of other people can get something across. Do you have any thoughts on this, Robert?
Well, I'm not familiar with this guy,
Me
but
neither.
there is an awful
Sounds
lot
like
of
a-
anti-Israel
sounds like a dork.
propaganda out. Probably, yeah. The thing about it is the only thing I've done all these years, the only thing I know how to tell anybody to do is just keep telling the truth. And if you see him saying something and it bothers you, then get the truth, make sure that you have it accurate, and do the research and put it out there. And maybe one person will see it, maybe 5, maybe 3 million, but you're putting it out there. That's the best you can do.
D Wood upgrade his Turk.
What's that?
AP's Turkish, so I got an upgrade.
I'm not a Turk. I'm one of the oppressed people from that land.
No, anytime I have anyone other than AP on, they say I upgraded my Turk.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, see, some people say, "Oh, he's a Turkish Christian, Spencer," because my family is from Turkey, but they were exiled for refusing to convert to Islam. They were not Turks.
AP got a DNA test and found out he's something like 70 or 80% Greek. And then he posted a meme of a person looking shocked at something, and it's he said a Turk after he gets his Every Turk after they get their DNA test and they find out they're all Greek.
I love it. Yeah, they're finding out all over, and you've probably seen more than I have because I'm not a video guy. But there are all these videos out there. Sometimes these Turks get their DNA test and they see that they're Greek or Armenian, and they just get enraged and start ranting and yelling. It's wildly entertaining, really.
Jack Ray says, when was the reference of Christendom shifted to the West? Well, it's not. It's just when we're talking about the West, then that has a lot to do with it. It seems to have contributed to this disassociation from a proper ideological link. The West just seems incorrect by comparison.
I'm not sure what you're getting at here. I mean, obviously, Christendom and the West are not identical, but they are often identified together because the West has been Christian historically. There are important Christian areas that are not considered part of the West. One of them is Turkey, which, of course, was the heartland of the Roman Empire, which was Christian for 1,000 years. You can see my book, Empire of God, about that. And so it's not an identical one-to-one equation, but people often speak about them together because they have been together all these years.
Yeah, and a lot of the places where you still have large Christian majorities happen to be Western nations, a lot of them. I have a strong feeling it's not going to be real socialism this time either.
Do you think? Surely it'll work this time.
Robert, are you as busy as the Al-Zut on that night?
No, not quite.
It's a reference to you talking earlier about how busy you are.
Yes.
Calandus Ovens now has a Cuban-American copycat. Nadia for real. Oh, boy, that's what we definitely need. We need more Candace clones.
She's got a lot of explaining to do.
Mamdani, Asian female vote. Asian men don't like him. Oh, okay. So it's the Asian female vote who are voting for him. And the Asian men don't like him. That's interesting.
It's Western leftists, basically. Leftists who have never actually lived in a socialist state. They are the ones who like him.
Robert, do you think you can do a post on Jihad Watch about the Toledo chapter of American Muslims for Palestine? They have recruited a lot of non-Arabs and non-Muslims, including some RNs who work in a hospital, registered nurses who work in a hospital.
Well, sure. If you send me some information or let me know where to find it, you can reach me at director@jihadwatch.org. Be glad to take a look. I'll write about it if I can. This is not really anything new, though. There was a Jewish guy who was the head of the Council on American Islamic Relations chapter in Philadelphia, Jacob Bender, for a number of years. And there have been others who CARE has especially tried to cultivate not only converts to Islam, but non-Muslims to work for them, to give them the air of really being the civil rights organization they claim to be. And when you got the Palestine issue, you got a lot of leftists eager to sign on. And so that leads to this kind of thing. Although you'd think they would join some group other than American Muslims for Palestine unless they're converts. On the other hand, they join CARE. So there we are.
Yep. Would this look like a European progressive party?
Would what look like it?
Yeah, what do you mean, Issa? Would this look like
Mamdani's New York? Would probably be something like a European, what's happening in Europe today. Look at London. I think London is a good analogy. Probably you want to see the future of New York, look at London. London is now, if I recall correctly, something like 36% native British and migrants of various kinds taking up the rest of the population, including, of course, a very significant population of Muslims. You have the police pandering to the Muslims so that we had, like we discussed earlier, the guy with the Star of David being arrested, many other incidents of that kind. And so that's probably the future of New York.
Mr. Spencer, been far too long. What's your take on the deal of the century brokered by President Trump a week ago? Sadly, 2 IDF soldiers have been killed. IDF retaliated. Will this hold? You trust OIC nations?
It's a terrible deal, disastrous deal, maybe the worst ever. How bad is the deal? It's just as bad as you can possibly imagine. It's one that allows Hamas to survive, and all Hamas had to do to win was survive, because the jihad never ends, my friends. That's why there was always material for This Week in Jihad, and always will be. The jihad never ends. Hamas might have ended, however, and if Hamas had ended, the jihad might have been set back for years, maybe even decades in that area. And instead, this deal gave Hamas a new lease on life, allowed it to survive. There's going to be more people killed, innocent people killed as a result of this. It's already not holding. The question is whether Trump will allow the Israelis to retaliate and to actually end Hamas like they have said they wanted to do. And of course, the OIC nations should not be trusted. That's basic. But the thing is the thing that always beats me about this, and I've written about this in great detail. You can read my book, The Palestinian Delusion, many others. You got a group that says war is deceit. And you've got a group that says you only conclude a truce when you're losing and need time to gather strength to fight again more effectively. You should not trust such a group. Now, that's Islam. And yet, even though all the Palestinian leaders always speak about the conflict in terms of Islam, you read every communique from Hamas, every communique from Iran, every communique from the Palestinian Authority, they're all Islam. And yet, what is the one thing that the West never takes into account when considering this issue? Islam. Trump never talks about it. The State Department never talks about it. The left never talks about it, of course, except to praise it. And so they're missing the one thing that the other people are telling us the conflict is all about. And so you want to know whether we can trust the OIC, look at the Treaty of Hudaybiyah in Islamic history and what it means in Islamic law. And yet nobody in the State Department is doing that.
Why so much anti-Semitism on the right? Disturbing. I think basically you always have anti-Semites in various places, but lots of the times they don't feel free to express what they really think. And then all of a sudden there's a war, and now we can say what we want. And
but there have been high-profile people who've switched. You can go back a few years and you see Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens talking about how important the alliance with Israel is, and now they're attacking Israel left and right. Mm-hmm. So what happened? Did they get blackmailed? Did they get paid? Did they get threatened? I don't know, but something happened.
Well, with both of those, see, I'm high functioning with a mental problem, right? I'm high functioning with a mental problem, and so. If you understand, you have weird thoughts in your head, you understand, hey, the people around me here, it would not go well if I put my thoughts out there on the stage and so on. So anyway, you can take someone like Candace or Tucker and have them, as long as they're under the control of some organization that's paying them for all these years, they can toe the party line. It's always possible that they really believed what they were saying and then flipped. But it's also possible that they always had some.
They were saying, and now they're saying what they really believe.
Then once they eventually lose their job, then they kind of go off on their own. Or as they get more popular, they feel more free to say what they really think, and then they lose their jobs and so on. And then they go off their own, and now there's nothing. Now there's nothing holding them. And you actually have an environment where you get rewarded. So you just blurt out. I mean, Robert, Candace is like, I had a dream telling me this. And she puts, oh, what great. Oh, this is powerful. And, you know, if you have a community of millions of people and they start cheering you on every time you let the crazy out, well, it just encourages you to keep letting the crazy out. And then there's nothing holding you back.
Yeah, I remember reading one time that Elvis got the idea once that he could stop the clouds and then make them move. And so he would be driving along with his cronies, and he would stop the car and make them get out and watch the clouds. And then they would, after a while, if they wanted to get moving again, they would have to say, yeah, Elvis, we saw you move it. And the thing is that this is a guy who from a very early age, everybody was telling him he was great. and that everything he did was superlative and outstanding. It can mess with your mind, and maybe that's what's going on with them as well.
Reaction to the Charlie Kirk tragedy.
What can I say, really? We're all under threat. I was speaking that week and was going out on stage the next day thinking, well, maybe there'll be shooters here. This is something, of course, that we all have to deal with. But I apologize. I don't mean to make it all about me. It was just what I was thinking when it happened was, oh, here I am out speaking at a time when maybe I prefer not to. But in any case, the thing about it is that the left loves violence. They've been calling for violence all this time. Violence is really the only tool in their box. It's not a bug, it's a feature, in other words. They talk about debate and about a political system where there's mutual opposition and so on, but they really don't believe in it. They want to stamp out dissent and have only their opinions heard, and they want to brutalize and kill those who disagree with them. And in this sense also, they're just like Islam, which has the death penalty for blasphemy. You burn the Quran and they'll kill you. You criticize Muhammad and they'll kill you, etc., etc., etc. So it's just the way that the opposition works. The left and the Muslims. You get out of line, they kill you. Charlie was a good guy, and I grieve for him and his family and his poor little kids. It's a terrible tragedy. At the same time, it should make us all the more resolved to go out there, no matter how dangerous it is, and stand against this. Remember the scripture, resist the devil and he will flee from you. That if we stand up to this, we can win. If we kowtow and become cowards and say, yes, okay, we don't want to get killed, we don't want to get shot, so we'll shut up and let you do what you want, well, then we'll be enslaved and murdered anyway.
Here's Mises again, Robert. Have you guys read 200 Years Together by Alexander Solzhenitsyn? I don't know who that is.
Solzhenitsyn.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It talks about Jewish-Russian relationship the last century, or is that anti-Semitic too? Let me break this down for you, Mises. If you say Jews were involved in something like this, as Jews were involved in basically anything that required educated people because they tended to be very educated, no problem. If you look at the whole situation in Russia and communism and everything that happened before it, you go, you see, the Jews, it's clear what you're about. If you're in the middle of a live stream about Zohran Mamdani and you're like, but what about Alexander? He says about the Jews. It's clear what you're about. So no, talking about some book, that's not what makes you anti-Semitic. Being anti-Semitic is what makes you anti-Semitic. Whining about Jews in every possible situation, no matter what the situation is, that's what makes you a hater of Jews. That's why we would say that. So get a frickin' life, you loser. Pathetic, man. The Jews.
Well
let me break this down. Dennis Prager pointed this out. He said, it became part of Jewish culture that knowledge was more valuable than possessions and so on. So they encouraged education. He said, guess what? That didn't just disappear culturally, even when people stopped believing, even when the Jews stopped believing in Judaism. So now they don't even care about the Jewish scriptures and stuff like that. And they're atheists. He says, guess what? They're still raised their entire lives that education is this super important thing. So they become, guess what? They become scientists and philosophers and so on. But I mean, just look like, so if you wanted to do what you just did, just think about it, right? So you had very educated Jews in Europe. So you had very educated Jewish physicists, people like Einstein and so on. Who works on the nuclear bomb? Well, guess what? Some of them are Jews. You see, Jews bombed Japan. Jews are trying to kill Japan. Oh my goodness, I have the evidence. That's what you sound like with everything. Gosh, get a freaking life. Biggest bunch of losers I've ever seen in my life. Is the Quran a bad attempt to summarize the Bible? Well, yes.
I don't think so. There are a lot of Bible stories in the Quran, but there are a lot that aren't. far more that aren't. And most of the stories that are in the Quran are repeated many times, as if you have a committee of people who are putting this thing together, and they have different versions of stories, and ultimately they can't agree on which is the best version, so they just stick them all in at various points.
Not in a Zut sense.
Yes, and you've got the also Christoph Luxemburg, who is a researcher who has done very interesting work about the text of the Quran, because we have to remember the earliest manuscripts of the Quran do not have the diacritical marks that help you distinguish one letter of Arabic from another. And a lot of the letters are exactly the same except for those marks. And so he says if you put in Aramaic marks, a lot of the weird passages of the Quran suddenly start to make sense. And they make sense as a Christian lectionary, not as a Bible, but as a book of various texts that are taken out of context and arranged for liturgical use, which would explain why the Quran lurches from subject to subject without any warning and has all this repetition in it. It's very, very, very interesting theory that you can read about more in my book, Did Muhammad Exist?, as well as in Muhammad, A Critical Biography, which goes more deeply into all that. But summarizing the Bible, I don't think so.
Recently, while interviewing AP, Peter Boghossian stated that Islam's takeover of the UK is inevitable, so it would now be wise to negotiate terms of surrender. I found this quite disturbing. Reactions. Why do you want us to react? We think that's stupid. Muslims are 6.5%. Yeah, Muslims are 6.5% of the UK population. Yeah, if they just continue being cowards for the next several decades, then they're in trouble. But seriously, negotiating surrender? Why are you bringing that up, man?
No, this is the thing. The British could solve this problem. They do not have to die unless they want to.
Mm-hmm.
But they could, in the first place, stop bringing in stop bringing in the migrants. Excuse me.
That's step one.
They still got these guys arriving every day, boats across the channel and so on. Stop bringing them in. That's one. Second, deport all the non-citizens, especially the illegals. Third,
especially anyone has ever said anything pro-jihad or pro-Sharia or anything else.
Exactly. Then the people who are pro-jihad, they go first. And then you go to the Muslim communities and you say, we have one law here. Sharia courts are closing. We have one set of laws for all the people. You want to obey those laws? Okay. Then you don't want to obey those laws, you will pay the penalties. Stop coddling the Muslim criminals. Stop giving them light sentences. Stop punishing the native population for resisting. All these things could bring Britain back to health. But they don't want to do them. That's why they're in trouble. You don't need to negotiate terms of surrender unless you want to. A lot of people want to.
Yeah, so it's not the strength of Islam. Islam is pathetic and weak. It's that the leaders are even more pathetic and weaker. And so guess what? Get some leaders with some balls and really, I mean, just the general population, even apart from your leaders. My goodness, if the population of Great Britain learned some basic information about Muhammad and learned the Islamic dilemma, Muslims aren't going to want to raise their kids around you if they're hearing all about Muhammad the entire time.
Yeah, see, there's all this dawah going on, and nothing is being done on the other side, aside from David and a few of the other YouTubers. But there's no effort in the churches in Britain or in any other organization to fight back against the dawah, to counter the dawah, much less to try to convert Muslims to Christianity or anything else for that matter. And so what if they did? What if every kid on the street in Britain knew the Islamic dilemma or knew something else that would make them put Muslims on the defensive? That would change the whole ballgame, but nobody's doing it.
Rick said, City Hall is code word for Momo. We belong in. So when he says we belong in City Hall, it's a Zoot reference. to being in Momo. Yet more examples of why we say without lies, Islam dies. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
David and Robert, your humble opinion. Week ago, Pentagon just signed Qatari Air Force Base in Idaho.
See, it's stupid. They don't know any. Trump 9 years ago said Qatar was a chief sponsor of terrorism. Apparently, he forgot. What's going on? Why does he think they've given it all up? This is incredibly short-sighted, and it's based on willful ignorance regarding what Qatar is all about.
And I'm guessing that's part of some deal. Hey, you got to support my deal here, and then I'll support you like this. And okay, we'll go with that. All right, last one here. Limerick. There once was a man called Mamdani who loves the five that gave Hamas money. Pretends to love LGBT. Guess tomorrow they'll see that electing Mamdani was not all that funny. All right, you have a little work on your meter. You got to change a couple words. But overall, very, very, very solid limerick there.
B+.
Yep. All right. And you heard that from the greatest poet of our generation. The poet laureate
Yep,
of all Western civilization. All right. We ready to check out these last few clips here?
Okay, I think they might just reinforce stuff we've already done, but we'll see.
We can always reinforce stuff. And guys, reminder, Robert has a book on Zohran Mamdani. So if you are at all interested, I understand some people might be on the other side of the world and aren't really concerned with what happens in New York, but a lot of people are concerned with what happens in New York. So you got the book there, but the link to get the book is in the description box. The link to the book is in the description box. It's right there. All right. Now we have more from the apparent next mayor of the richest city in the world. Here we go.
I am someone who I would say am less comfortable with the idea of banning the use of certain words, and that I think it is more evocative of a Trump-style approach to how to lead a country.
I'm on the same page here. I'm not in favor of banning words, so keep going,
Yeah.
Zohran.
Well, wait a minute.
Well,
See, this is the thing he was saying about globalize the intifada. And nobody was saying ban the phrase or arrest people who say it. They were saying this is a call to kill innocent Jews everywhere in the world. And so do you endorse that? And he says, oh, I don't want to ban anything. I'm in favor of the freedom of speech. That's like Trump. Well, Trump's not in favor of restricting the freedom of speech either. So in the first place, he's demonizing Trump on false pretenses. And in the second place, he's completely straw-manning the issue, which is not about banning any phrase at all, but
smart.
about whether he condemns killing innocent Jews.
Pretty smart. So, guys, the last intifada, I think between 100 and 200 suicide bombings and so on. I think around 1,000 Israelis died and about 3,000 Palestinians. And that was the last intifada. And what do you have? You have people calling to globalize this, just attacking Jews by any means possible. And then Zohran asked, hey, do you have a problem with globalizing the intifada? And, well, I'm not in favor of banning words. So you're saying that's what he's responding to here. I'm going to back up just so everyone knows what he's responding to here. So here he's being asked about globalize the intifada. Does he condemn it? And here's his response.
I am someone who I would say am less comfortable with the idea of banning the use of certain words, and that I think it is more evocative of a Trump-style approach to.
That's brilliant. I'm not in favor of banning words. That's Trump, everyone. Oh, that's Trump. We don't want to be like Trump. Yeah, globalize the intifada. Globalize the intifada. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Evil, but brilliant.
How to lead a country. And I think especially when we've seen
Sure, but like, does that just make you uncomfortable? Like the phrase "globalized intifada" from the river to the sea. Does that make you uncomfortable, or do you think?
Okay, those are different. Those are super
not
different.
They're
those
not
are
really
like different genres.
I'm sorry, I'm asking Zohran. Then they're not really different to me, and to some people, they're not different.
You know,
dude, get rid of that. Does this dude have a neon flamingo beside him? All right, dude.
Looks like it.
Some people are not different.
You know, I know people for whom those things mean very different things. And to me, ultimately, what I hear in so many is a desperate desire for equality and equal rights in.
So he was asked about globalize the intifada, which is a call for it's hey, what these guys were doing to attack Jews in Israel, that needs to be globalized. Do that everywhere. And we've seen some people actually put that into practice. And then the other was from the river to the sea, which the river, for all you Mamdani fans who don't know basic geography, the river is the Jordan River and the sea is the Mediterranean. And the call from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, means you're wiping out Israel. You're wiping out Israel and giving it to Muslims. And he just said, I hear a cry for equality. Well, I mean, seriously, just you could at this point, you could just make up anything that's appealing to his leftist audience. You could say, when I hear globalize the intifada, I hear a call for LGBTQ rights. When I hear from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, all I hear is seize the means of production to get our communist utopia. It's like you could just make up any. We know what those slogans are about, you giant jackass. My goodness, man.
In standing up for Palestinian human rights. And I think what's difficult also is that the very word has been used by the Holocaust Museum when translating the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising into Arabic, because it's a word that means struggle.
Sure.
And as a
you hear that?
Muslim man.
You notice how slick that is?
Yep.
The Jews. He says, oh, intifada is not so bad, because the Holocaust Museum used it when it was talking about the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. Well, okay, maybe that's true, but it doesn't mean that the people who are chanting globalize the intifada are talking about the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. They're talking about killing Jews today. And he's just completely obfuscating the issue.
Let me see. I just looked it up. I'm not sure about this because I just did a search right now. It says, so I said, did a Holocaust museum use the word intifada? No, a Holocaust museum did not use intifada as a term in reference to the Holocaust. Intifada refers to the Palestinian uprisings against Israel, while the Holocaust was a systematic state-sponsored persecution and murder of 6 million Jews by the Nazi regime and its collaborators. These are two distinct let's see. Hang on, let me find out where. I don't think that's right. There must be something he's pointing to.
Maybe. He might be making it up.
Let me see right here. So there is an article about it. Zohran Mamdani, a Democrat, this is from NBC News. Zohran Mamdani, a Democrat running for mayor of New York, drew pushback from Jewish organizations and political leaders this week. Well, it's weird because Jews are the ones putting him into power, as you can see from the picture of him with some Jews. Gosh. Drew pushback from Jewish organizations and political leaders this week after he appeared to defend the slogan, globalize the intifada. In an interview with The Bulwark, posted Tuesday, Mamdani was asked whether the expression made him uncomfortable. Okay, so that was apparently this one. In response, he said that the slogan captured a desperate desire for equality and equal rights and standing up for Palestinian human rights. Okay, so that's this interview. He said the U.S. Holocaust Museum had used the word intifada in Arabic language descriptions of the 1943 Warsaw Ghetto Uprising against Nazi Germany. Mamdani, a progressive New York state assemblyman who has forcefully criticized the Israeli government, also addressed the rise in anti-Semitism since the October 7, 2023 terrorist attack and war in Gaza, saying that anti-Jewish prejudice, yeah, we know he says this when he's asked All right. What's the criticism? Okay. The Washington-based U.S. Holocaust Museum sharply condemned Mamdani's remarks Wednesday on X. They said exploiting the museum and the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising to sanitize, globalize the Intifada is outrageous and especially offensive to survivors. Since 1987, Jews have been attacked and murdered under its banner. All leaders must condemn its use and the abuse of history.
There you go.
Jonathan Greenblatt, chief executive of the Anti-Defamation League, decried the phrase on X as an explicit incitement to violence. Representative Dan Goldman, Democrat, New York, who is Jewish, said in a statement that the word intifada is well understood to refer to the violent terror attacks against innocent Israeli civilians that occurred during the first and second intifadas. If Mr. Mamdani is unwilling to heed the request of major Jewish organizations to condemn this unquestionably anti-Semitic phrase, then he is unfit to lead a city with 1.3 million Jews, the largest Jewish population outside of Israel. So, can you imagine that, Robert? They're like, hey, there are people going around saying globalize the Intifada. They know what they're talking about. They know what they mean. What do you think about that? Do you have any problem with that? Well, the Jews, they're okay with the Intifada. They're okay with the Intifada. They love the Intifada. They talk about the Intifada. So why would they complain about the Intifada? Jews love the Intifada. What the heck is wrong with this guy?
That's the idea. That's what he's saying.
And seriously, it's like, oh, well, technically the word can mean, we know what the people using the word mean by the word.
Exactly.
I grew up post 9/11. I'm all too familiar in the way in which Arabic words can be twisted, can be distorted, can be used to justify any kind of meaning.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it leaves me with a sense that what we need to do is focus on keeping Jewish New Yorkers safe, and the question of the permissibility of language is something that I haven't.
If you're talking about protecting Jewish New Yorkers, which is very important to you while you're running, because you do have some Jewish voters. If you actually want to keep them safe, you should probably have a problem with globalizing the Intifada. Even if we're not talking about banning words. I'm not talking about banning words.
Nobody's talking about banning words.
Literally no one is talking about banning the word Intifada. We're saying...
It's a total straw man when he says that.
Yeah, we're saying, do you have a problem with when people are chanting globalize the Intifada? Do you have a problem with that? Well, in the Holocaust Museum, see, Jews love that. All right, you're a lying, evil scumbag. Ready for the next one, Robert?
What's that now? Yeah, let's go.
Got two more clips. Let's see what we have here.
There is still, this illusion, and it's partially a result of settler colonialism, that all of us can become New Yorkers, that all of us can settle into the city. And yet there would be these moments where I would be reminded by someone whose intent was to tell me that you do not belong. And
someone telling him, yeah,
he's a poor Muslim victim. That's when he talks most about Islam, when he talks about how bad New York is to Muslims.
So just to be clear, Robert, this is a family of immigrants. One is a professor at Columbia University. The other parent is an award-winning film producer.
Yeah, and people should know. She directed, but in any case, she was deeply involved in Mississippi Masala with Denzel Washington, big hit movie, The Reluctant Fundamentalist, several other hit movies, and this is a multimillionaire we're talking about, a world-renowned filmmaker. And her husband, Mahmoud Mamdani, is a communist writer, an avowed Marxist, who has written some very influential books, including Good Muslim, Bad Muslim. To remember when it came out in 2005, and he's arguing in it that jihad is not anything to worry about. It's really just the big bad West that the poor Muslims are reacting to. And he grew up in this environment of privilege and wealth.
So family of immigrants. They travel here from another country. Dad is a professor at an Ivy League university. Mom is an Academy Award winning film producer, and he's about to be mayor of the richest city in the world, and he's complaining about being a victim.
That's about the size of it.
Why? Because if you can convince Westerners that you're a victim, it is the easiest way to manipulate them. All right.
And one of those first moments was on 9/11, when, before I knew what had happened, my teacher had pulled me and a Muslim classmate of mine out of the class and told us that something has happened and you may be bullied. And I want you to tell me if that happens. And frankly, I was lucky because most Muslim students in the city were not given that kind of care from their teachers. And yet in that moment, I realized that I was not simply another classmate in a middle school. I was distinct. And there was a marker of that distinction on me. And it was something.
So hang on. He's saying that, wait, now he's a victim because his teacher said, hey, if anyone bothers you over this.
Exactly. Nobody bothered him, mind you, but he's still whining because his teacher said, let me know because I want to protect you.
I would be reminded of again and again, something when we came back from a trip abroad, being pulled aside at JFK by immigration agents in a double mirrored room, sitting me down on my own while my family was outside, and asking me if I had just attended a terrorist training camp, and if I had intentions of attacking this country, and if so, what were those plans? And it's something that has continued in the time since, where a few months ago, I went with a client of mine to a bankruptcy court, and as we're going into the court, the security guard takes me aside and pats me down with additional care and asks me multiple times if I have any weapons of mass destruction on me. And in these moments, the sense of not knowing where home is, they're amplified by what I would see around me.
Poor guy.
Those questions
going to be the most persecuted mayor of New York City in history.
Yeah, those questions about that the immigration officials asked him. In the first place, anybody who's ever been out of the country and comes back in knows immigration officials are jerks, and they ask you questions that are designed to provoke you.
Yeah,
they have done.
They're looking for your reaction. They're looking for your reaction.
Precisely. They are looking for your reaction. They don't really think that some guy is going to say, yes, I'm a terrorist. I was just plotting in a terrorist training camp to destroy the U.S. Here are my weapons of mass destruction. They want to see how you're going to react, because it's possible that you will react in a way that will make them realize that there is some reason to look at you more closely. And so he's whining about this. This is something that everybody, Muslim and non-Muslim, goes through at the border. I remember a guy I was speaking in Canada. I was coming back from Canada, and the guy says, what do you do? I'm a writer. What do you write? I write about terrorism. What makes you think you know anything about terrorism? And he's making me explain all this basic stuff to him as if I was on trial or something. And it's just, you got to do it if you want to get back in. But did I go and whine about it and say, oh, the immigration official was being racist, or I don't know what?
If you had been able to establish yourself as a victim, Robert, maybe you'd be mayor of New York City right now.
Yeah, I missed my big shot.
Should have been more like Zohran, the perpetual victim. All right. One more clip, Robert. One more clip.
Okay.
Here we go. Zohran, the perpetual victim of horrible, horrible oppression.
My platform is that every single person should have housing.
Awesome.
And I think faced with these two options, the system has hundreds of thousands of people unhoused, right? For what? And if there was any system that could guarantee each person housing, whether you call it the abolition of private property or you call it, just a statewide housing guarantee, it is preferable to what is going on right now.
The abolition of private
and I think
property.
that people try and play like gotcha games about these kinds of things. And it's like, look, I care more about whether somebody has a home.
I care more about whether someone has a home. So we'll abolish private property and your home will be provided to you by the U.S. government. And there are people, wow, what a great idea.
Yeah, because the U.S. government runs everything so well.
Yeah, guys, that's kind of the fundamental principle. Generally, the U.S. government does a crap job, right? I mean, keep in mind, the U.S. government can make a company right now making cars or something like that. They can do it. They can say, hey, we're gonna make a car company. They would not be able to compete with because it'd be the government, right? It'd be the government, and they wouldn't have the same drive for excellence that other car companies have. And so the governments just do a crap job. There's certain things that you need them to do, like armed forces and things like that. But guys, there's a system in place. There's a reason the system works. If I have this company making a product and this company making a product, then those companies are in competition, especially when you have a bunch of companies. Then they're competing with each other in terms of who makes the best stuff and who keeps the prices lowest. Right? So there's a competition. So guess what? If a company starts making stuff better, that company's going to do even better. If a company is able to make the same product cheaper, more people are going to buy from that company and so on. It's this competition that keeps moving things forward. If all of a sudden the government controls all of it and the government has no competition, there it goes. There goes your progress. There goes your progress. And it's complete morons who say, oh, just let the government run everything and then it'll be great. And the government can provide all our houses and provide all our jobs or provide everything and just hand us everything and everything will be great. Yeah, that works so well in every place it's been tried. Absolute lunatic.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there you have it, David. The man's a very dangerous guy.
We'll take these last few super chats and then share final thoughts. And then everyone should grab Robert's new book. Again, link is in the description. Congratulations to Robert Spencer on being honored by the AFA. And I have to say, being honored with his picture on the cover of his new book.
Yes, much younger. Yes.
Is this Mamdani guy on H-1B? Kidding, lol.
What's H-1B? I should know.
I think that's a visa. Isn't that the kind of visa?
Oh, yeah. Well, he's a citizen. What's interesting is he's 33 years old, and he's been in the country since the early 2000s, but he only became a citizen 2017. And it's interesting that a guy's been a citizen for 8 years. He's about to become mayor
Still
of
a victim.
the largest city in the country.
Still a victim, Robert.
Yep.
You will not diminish his victimhood. It doesn't matter. We could make him king of the universe. He will still be a victim. The demand for Tucker and Candace's conspiracy content seems to be highly funded by non-American listeners, including, drumroll, many Muslims.
Probably so.
Yeah, that's another issue that arises in these situations. So one, again, as I pointed out, you can always have people who, let's say you don't like Jews, but you can't ordinarily say, I can't stand Jews, because then you'll be condemned. But if you got a war breaking out, all of a sudden it's acceptable. It's acceptable. You just have to say, no, I just mean Zionists and so on. You just do that for a while. But also, as soon as you start doing that, all of a sudden you have this new huge fan base around the world. Because guess what? There are tons of people around the world who don't like Israel, don't like Jews, and so on. And all of a sudden, boom. Oh, wow. I just got millions of new fans here. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You're going to keep giving the people what they want.
It's a social contagion right now, and it's spreading everywhere.
Despite this, why will so many Jews vote for Zohran? Again, people have no clue who he is. You have tons of Jews who are far leftists and who love what that guy's saying.
Yeah, and they hate Israel as well. And so that his anti-Israel stances, even his anti-Semitism, it doesn't really bother them because they essentially feel the same way. They identify with the left. The Jews and the left, it's a long story going back to the persecution of the Jews in Europe. And they saw socialism as a great leveler that would put everybody on the same at the same at the same place with the same status. And so finally they would stop being persecuted and be on the same level as everybody else. So you have historically a big, deep connection between Jews and the left. And even though the left is now turned very decisively against the Jews and in its collectivist impulse wants to stamp out a stubbornly non-assimilated individual group, they are slow in getting that. Many of them are slow in picking that up. And Mamdani is certainly going to make a lot of Jewish voters in New York regret their vote, I'm sure.
I suspect so. I can't wait to read your new books, Robert. Your others are excellent.
Thank you very much. This one's right available now. Go to Amazon. It's right there.
Link is in the description. Quran means lectionary in Syriac. Was the Quran originally a Syriac lectionary that got hijacked, and Islam was originally founded on Syriac Christianity?
Yeah, that is kind of Christoph Luxemburg's contention. And there's some evidence for it, particularly if you read his books, which I highly recommend. But you can also read the Critical Quran, particularly toward the end of chapter 5, Surah 5, where there is the table that comes down from heaven, and Luxemburg makes a very strong case about this being actually a description of the Eucharist from this Aramaic Christian substratum of the Quran. And there are other passages that describe Christmas and other things that are not Islamic that are clear from when you strip out the Arabic diacritical marks and put in Aramaic diacritical marks. It's a theory, as are all of these things, but it's deeply compelling in many ways, and there are indications. I mean, that's another thing he says, actually, that the mysterious letters, that start so many Quran chapters.
Aleph, Lam, Mim.
Exactly. That those are just the ones I was saying. That they are actually abbreviations for various lectionary. I mean, they're lectionary markers. Like you read this, and then you read this part Aleph, and then you go to Lam to the other part and read that after this, and then read Mim, the third part. And that's how lectionaries work. That they tell you, after you read this, go here, and so on. And so that's his theory about what those letters mean. But there's a great deal more to it.
Savannah asks, have you or Roberto watched The Dragon's Prophecy by Dinesh D'Souza? No, I have not.
I have not had the ability to do that. I've been so busy with everything, and really videos.
Me too.
They take so long. I don't mean to disparage anybody that makes videos, but I can watch something for 2 hours, or I can read it in 10 minutes. And
earlier you already said never listen to anyone who has a YouTube channel.
Yes, read books, people.
Do you think New York City will wake up in 4 years or no? Here's the thing. Again, as I mentioned, Zohran might get into power and might get a stern talking to from people who are actually pulling the strings and say, okay, you can do one or two things, but you're not doing all this stuff, and you're not going to turn this. You're not going to destroy this city. So do a couple things. And know your role and shut your mouth and be a pretty face for everybody. That's what you're here for. But no, we cannot let you completely ruin the richest city in the world. We would go down and hit. This would actually destroy us in the long run. So it's possible that he doesn't do as much damage as he could do, or as we think he might do. But here's the thing. If he actually does a ton of the damage, in other words, here's where the real damage comes in, guys. It's if he goes after the rich people. It doesn't have to, if you have hundreds of thousands, which they do, if you have hundreds of thousands of millionaires, they don't all need to leave. If you just get a good portion of them are like, you know what? If these guys are really not liking me here, if they're not liking me, why am I going to be here? If they're going to target me and view me as an enemy, and now I have to use my money to pay for everyone else's bus rides. You know what? I'm going to go someplace else where I don't have to pay for people's bus rides. If you have a ton of people leave, again, you've already done the damage. It doesn't matter if New York City wakes up after that. Damage will have been done. You're not getting these people back. It's not going to be the next mayor comes in, hey, everyone come back. You've already moved. You've already established your business elsewhere. Now come back. They're not going to come back. Why? They don't trust you. Why are we going to come back when the next election after the new mayor you might put in another socialist again? They're not going to trust the population. They're not going to trust the voters in that city anymore. And so there's a situation where you can kind of do serious long-term damage in a short amount of time.
He could do that. He could be Sadiq Khan in America. At the same time, I'm going to do something uncharacteristic, and that is be optimistic, or at least offer an optimistic scenario. And that is that he will make so much trouble in New York that he will give rise to somebody like Rudolph Giuliani. I don't know who that person could be, but I remember.
You're a victim.
Yeah, some of you.
That's all it requires. Just be a victim. That's it. It's one requirement.
Back in the 80s, there was a mayor of New York, David Dinkins, and the left loved him, and he was riding high, but he was a terrible mayor. And crime skyrocketed. I was still living in the city at that time. It was a place nobody wanted to be in. And it was because of how bad David Dinkins was as mayor that Rudolph Giuliani was elected, and he turned the city around, started to fight crime at all levels, clean up the graffiti and do basic things like that, which made people think the city is not out of control and ungoverned and completely anarchic, but there are actually people in charge. And there was a revitalization in New York where it had a real boom in the 90s and the 2000s. Now it's 25 years later, and looks like we're going to have to do the same thing again. But Obama gave rise to Trump. Biden gave rise to Trump again, and Mamdani could give rise to somebody like that, just as Dinkins gave rise to Giuliani.
Robert, Tommy Robinson shout you out in Israel. I heard that earlier. You hear about that?
No, I haven't heard about that.
I heard about that in my previous live stream. They said, hey, did you see Tommy Robinson mentioned Robert Spencer's work? So yeah, Tommy gave you a shout out. I think in an interview. Yeah, we'll have to.
Well, Tommy's a great man, a man of great courage. He's one of the only men left in Britain, and I wish he were prime minister.
Hey, Paul, why don't you find whatever you're talking about, whatever video you're talking about, and send that to Robert over at Jihad Watch so he can share that.
Thanks. Yeah, I'd like to see it. Director@jihadwatch.org is my email.
Mm-hmm. Thank you both, and I pray for your safety daily. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you think New York City could turn into London or no? Well, it might take a little longer, but they could definitely head in that direction.
Easily.
Yeah. So it's a situation where, you got a big city and, you could have a mayor who's doing all kinds of things. New Yorkers at the end of the day are in a better situation than in the UK. We have a stronger commitment to freedom of speech than they do in the UK. We're not locking people up over here for saying something critical of Islam online and so on. So we still do have a lot more freedom. So it would take a lot longer to get to the situation in London, but you can definitely start heading in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Mosh Cohen here. Last one. Robert, you described the situation with Obama and Trump. He was so bad in every aspect that Trump got elected. And congrats on your new book, mate.
Thanks, Moshko. Appreciate it.
And all right. So any final thoughts on all this, Robert, before we close out?
It's going to get bad. Don't lose heart. Keep going. Remember, after the cross comes the resurrection.
Indeed. And again, guys, the election is right around the corner. So if you'd like to be very informed about that, and guys, keep in mind, right? Like, as we pointed out, there still is, I mean, the thing is, I think Andrew Cuomo sucks too, right? I think Andrew Cuomo sucks too, but at least he's not a communist. And, just pandering to Muslims and the like extreme leftists and so on. So I don't know if you're basically I don't want Mamdani in, and I would much rather go with Cuomo in spite of his flaws, but do not want a commie taking over New York. You do still have time, as we pointed out. If you do the math, if Sliwa were to drop out and those people were to vote, then you've got a race. You've got an almost even race. So if you want to do something, I would advise you to grab Robert's book on Mamdani. Link is in the description, and use that material on social media all day, every day up until the election. That would be your best bet for actually doing something. And if you get enough people doing that, a bunch of people grab a book, some people make videos, a bunch of people go all over social media pointing stuff out. Because again, I mean, I saw this. Mamdani won the primary. They're going around asking people. They had no clue what his policies were. It's just, he's the young guy who's everywhere, who's running around everywhere. Oh, the young guy. Oh, the young Democrat. Oh yeah, we don't like the old Democrat. We like the young Democrat. And they had no idea what they were. And once he had it, then they start finding out what this guy's all about. But it's like, we're locked in now. What are we going to do? He won the primary. We're stuck with him. So yeah, so all up to you guys, all up to you. And finally, miss your weekly vids, but excited for the book. That's good.
Thanks.
And trying to think, anything else?
I got nothing.
All right, guys. So you heard it all here. And if Mamdani becomes mayor and completely destroys New York City, look on the bright side. We'll be able to spend the rest of our lives telling you yet again, as we have for many years, we told you so. Catch y'all next time.